All right, it's another day of the Homeric Rhapsody thing. It occurred to me while I was getting ready to do this one that I might be the first person to ever attempt to recite Homeric style verse wearing a Hot Grill t-shirt. So that's something, maybe possibly a record, I don't know. What I'm doing here is not necessarily trying to recreate the Iliad word for word, which in English would be meaningless anyway, because you'd just be recreating somebody's translation. I'm also not necessarily trying to create an entirely unique story. I am merely attempting to uphold the ancient tradition of oral poetry, which it might be hard for people in the modern era to believe, but oral poetry's ancient tradition is something between the two of those things, reciting a thing in its entirety, word for word, and making something up that's new at the same time. Kind of like how jazz music is never necessarily the same exact thing when you play it another time, or when somebody plays it another time. If it's not on a CD or something, when it gets played over multiple sessions, it's always different, because the starting point is just a suggestion, pretty much. Anyway, yeah, I am not nearly skilled at it yet, but that's why we're doing it every day, and let's keep going. We're in book 2 at the moment. And so Agamemnon, king of the Argives, had been visited by this fateful dream. He sprang up, he put on his armor, and he assembled the hosts. All had gathered in that fateful field where he and Achilles only a few days earlier had had their quarrel. Now, with all the heroes and all the leaders of the various Argive contingents gathered, Agamemnon spoke of what had occurred that night. "O you great lords of the Achaeans, I have been visited by Zeus, a messenger of Zeus himself, who tells me through a dream that we shall take this city of Troy on this very day. It came to me in the likeness of Nestor, one of my most trusted counselors. Nestor, he came in your guise, saying to me, 'Will you sleep this whole night through, great Lord Agamemnon, if Lord you be? You have a responsibility to the Achaeans, to protect and to destroy that cursed city of Troy, which had so wronged you and yours. Therefore, get yourself up, gather the armies, and storm that city, because Hera has convinced Zeus, finally, that the city of Troy shall be taken.'" All the leaders were stunned at this. They had never considered that such a thing would come through such a channel. And finally, it was the Gerenian Lord Nestor who spoke up. "O great and wise Lord Agamemnon, yea, Achaean hosts, if it had been any other leader of us, any other man of our forces who said such a thing, I would not have believed it. But the Lord Marshal himself has told us that this directive comes from Zeus, the Lord Thunderer, up on his throne in Olympus. And who are we to question? So gather we our men, and gather the hosts together. We shall assemble a force that has not been seen before the walls of Troy for many a moon. And I have, I may say, some experience above the rest of you, for age often lends such wisdom. So allow me to speak for a moment on what I think the best course of action for the Achaeans to take in assembling our forces. Let us gather tribe by tribe. We shall put each force in its own section, led by its own commanders. And we shall keep all the bravest men to the outside, but the cowards and the ones who are likely to fly on the inside. Therefore, they shall not be able to get out, even if they should be so inclined. This be the way to know which be the bravest of the contingents and which the lesser. All seemed in agreement at this, and Agamemnon too spoke to him. O Nestor, every time you give counsel, it always be something that pleaseth me. I recommend this to all you lords, and I shall assemble my forces in the same way. Now, we shall gather the men. Gather each your own contingents, bring them all to the assembly field. We shall assemble that force soon enough. But first, we must go through the ancient custom that has been passed down through many a father, until even to this day we still do it, even if we do not completely understand why. I shall tell the men first that we are leaving Troy. I shall feign to them that I have lost heart for this war, and that I am sending them all back to their wives and their loved ones. We shall test their mettle. What we want them to do is to say, "Nay, Agamemnon, we want to fight. We want to fight for you and your brother's glorious cause." And what your responsibilities will be, great commanders, Odysseus, Ajax, Diomedes, and all of you assembled here, what your responsibilities will be is to uphold that honor and that fighting spirit within your men. Do not allow even their great Lord Commander to revoke the directive of attack. We are encamped here, and we shall prevail, and they must have this moment within their hearts to make trial of themselves. We will see what sort of force we have assembled. Therefore, all the men were gathered, and Agamemnon stood up and spake, but not to the effect that he had expected. All right. Not so bad. Okay, the good points there. It was relatively fluid. I hit most of the plot points that are necessary, and also inserted, because I've always thought, and a lot of translators and scholars also kind of have a really hard time with this thing that's about to come up in the story where Agamemnon like lies to the men and says that he is actually leaving, and then they, you'll see what happens next. But it's kind of like a thing where he's asking for what happens, or that's how it seems to us. But some translators have suggested that it's like some kind of ancient custom, but they never really go any further than that. So I added a nice little thing where I suggest that even Agamemnon and the people of their era no longer know why they do it, but that it's just a tradition that they've always done. Which I think is kind of an interesting way to frame that, to sort of like lampshade hang the idea that like, yeah, we the characters also don't know why we do this, but it's just something that we do. I thought it went pretty well. I thought it was also a nice little thing too that I mentioned last time when I had the embassy from the dream, that I like how when Zeus gives a directive and it gets repeated, that then the whole story happens again, even though you, the audience, already know what was said. It doesn't need to be said again, but it is in the Iliad, and I did it for a third time in this one, which I'm pretty sure also happens in the story, where Agamemnon then tells what the dream said, but I gave him slightly different words. Again, like I was saying yesterday, partially because I wanted to, but also partially just because I didn't remember exactly the way I phrased it last time. But it makes it a little more interesting. Other than that, yeah, I mean, I can't remember whether Nestor's thing about putting the cowards in the middle was part of this speech or a different one, but it works here. there's a great thing in Christopher Loeb's war music where Nestor kind of like really questions. He feels like Agamemnon is sort of like off the rails at this point, or like kind of losing his mind. So I kind of suggested that a little bit. Christopher Loeb's thing, though, is a masterpiece, and I would hope to at least get anywhere. If I could even have like one iota of the talent of that work, that would be amazing. But again, my storytelling skills are not that great yet, or my oral storytelling skills with no preparation, not that great yet. But I'm glad to be doing it every day. Once again, I'm happy that I'm continuing, and I do think I'm getting better in very small steps. So we'll be back next time.